Good morning, everybody. We are going to do something just a little bit different in this video. We're well into the project and we're doing applique, and we're hearing a few things about applique that make it, it's a little different doing it with a foundation. And we want to kind of help you get past some of this. It's different, it's new, never been done with foundations before. So we're kind of pioneers in this. So Mom's found quite a number of different ways that make this a little easier, different ways to think about it. And she wants to show you something about that. We're going to be working on block D out of row 11 right now. But this goes with all the applique that we're doing. So she kind of want to give you a background, a little more, just what we're going to hit applique and more hand applique than anything else, I think, at this point, unless she changes her mind. And that's very possible.
It's entirely possible.
But anyway, I'm going to spotlight the tablet, and then she's going to go into this applique and kind of different things that you need to watch out for, kind of maybe help it make it a little easier, different way to think about it. It's very new and very different. So we're kind of give you some few little bit of feedback on that. So with that being said, there's the tablet and the spotlight. And there's the block that we're going to look at. This block has got two small appliques here, and then one larger one here that covers the raw edges of that, plus each one of these out here. Every one of them, with the exception of these two little ones, is closed edge applique. All the edges around the outside edge of every one of these is completely turned under. With these, you have the piece that's underneath of here that's not turned under. It's the only thing that makes it different. We're not putting it in a seam line. We're just not turning it under because we don't need to. So that's where we're going to start, is with these two little bitty dinky pieces here. Okay, move this out of the way. And Mom, how do you start with this?
To start off with, this is a turned edge inseam, but actually the inseam part is what's going to be underneath the next applique. These are going to be underneath this one. So we do this first, and I stitched on the red lines
to give yourself a placement.
To give myself a placement, and then I laid the applique down and decided that I needed the applique edge was right along that little black line, which is fine. So I sewed number 1B down. It's already down. And after I got that in place and stitched down, I reached in and loosened the glue and I pulled out the pattern. So there's just applique, just fabric, no foundation except what's right here.
And you can do that simply because
that's open.
This edge right here is open.
And I only stitched to where I didn't come clear over to here because you don't need to. We're going to stitch again around here to put the next one on. So it's unnecessary to stitch way over here. But I stuck a pin through where I wanted to start and stop and put that down. Then I pulled the foundation, the pattern out of that one.
Okay.
Then I got that one ready. You'll notice they overlap, which is okay.
Now, we also have to realize that this piece of white fabric is one solid piece. You can see it under here.
Yeah, it's just one piece of fabric.
It's one solid piece of fabric that is glued down to this whole piece of foundation with a little bit of washable glue. So we keep that in mind as well, because that'll be something we hit on later. Okay, now that you've got piece number one,
let me go back to the glue to glue it down. When you glue this down, you want to do it very sparingly because you don't want much glue on here. So I put a little touch of glue here and a little touch here and here. And I use the little reducer that we got.
The little tips
that goes on the glue stick. And I really like them, but I'll tell you one thing about them. They're a glue waster, but when you get to the end of the tube, you can't use what's up in here because you'll take it off the glue stick. So you either figure out another way to use it or you pitch it, which with this type of glue we're using is not a big expense, but that's really good for
so
these
that's the only issue you're finding
I'm finding with that.
And that basically anything that would be in this
in this from
this,
there up
there up.
is gone.
Okay,
If after you get to the end of your glue tube and you can't crank it up any higher.
okay.
So I used that to put these little dots of glue here, and then I stuck the fabric to this, stitched on the red lines, and I've already hand sewn or hand appliqued this down. Now, hand applique I've found in with stable piecing is not the same as applique in other places. And the reason is when you applique ordinarily, you go down and then scoop up. Well, when you go down, you've caught your foundation, and you don't want to do that. So what I do is where that thread comes out right there, I'll stick my needle, lay my needle almost on top.
So you're underneath of the thread?
I'm underneath. I go behind. The thread is right here. Get my fingers out of the way. And instead of going down ahead of it, I want to come back here and go down behind it, a little to the right of it instead of left. If you're a left-handed applicator, you're going to reverse those directions. So I stick this down.
And you're wiggling the needle, I can
wiggle the
see.
needle a little bit, and I can tell by the feel whether I've caught the foundation or not. And then all I do is just tip that needle up, and I've got my stitch.
All right, now flip the thing over before you pull that stitch through. And you can see there, okay, pull the foundation away from there.
There's the needle.
The needle is going through just the fabric. It has not caught the foundation.
Right.
Okay.
Now I'm going to pull that through. And I really didn't want to catch the thread down there, but I did anyway. Okay, now we got another thing. We're coming to a point. And points in stable applique, in this case, because they're so small, are what I call raw, right there. You freight checked it, that's just a bare thread. It's not turned under.
And it's the reason is because you've clipped into that whenever you clip into it, and then you're folding the fabric, and that one little bitty spot is a raw edge.
Right. Now, that little edge can lift up.
Okay.
So I'm going to take and put my needle down here where I would have ordinarily, and I'm going to stick it. If you think you've stuck your foundation, wiggle it so it comes free. Then come across and come out right beside the point.
Okay, so you're going
right underneath the point, only through the background fabric.
Okay.
I'm going to take that stitch. Now I'm going to hold the thread down here, and I'm going to make another little stitch.
In the background
only?
In
the background only.
Okay, I can see that now.
And I'm going to hold this loop down here because I don't want it to flip off the point. And as you pull it up, it's trapped the point.
Oh, so you've not sewn through the point, but you've trapped it.
I've trapped it.
Okay.
Now, to make sure I've got it where I want it, I'm going to go back down over here again.
In the background
only.
In the
background only, and I'm going to angle my needle so I'm coming up through applique. And again, I'm not catching the foundation.
Okay.
So now I've got two threads going across this. I'm going to hold the thread down here. And that's it.
So you're not running a stitch through that end. You're just doing loops over the top that hold it down.
Now we're back down to slide your needle under and rotate it a little bit or scoop it up. And here again, we're not going through the foundation.
Okay, I didn't see that part. Hang on a minute. Go back through this one. Oh, okay. I see the needle there now. Okay.
Now we got one other thing that I'm going to show you. I don't know how many of you have these things, but I happen to have one. Tailor's ham.
This is a device that anybody who makes garments knows exactly what you've got. It usually is, it's stuffed with, I don't know what it's stuffed with.
A lot of times they say sawdust.
Whatever it is, it's solid.
It's hard.
It's hard.
This is a little piece to applique on, and sometimes it's hard to hang on to it. So I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to stick it up here in this corner. I want to be able to rotate this. So I'm going to stick it into the ham.
Okay.
And now my little piece is going to stay right there.
Okay, so you're actually got something to pull against. Okay.
And I'm going to go in flat. And I felt that I caught the foundation. So I'm going to slowly back that needle up and lift it. And when it came loose, you can feel that too. When it came loose, then I knew I was okay.
Okay.
Now I've got a red mark there, and it'll go away when I press it. That's as far as I'm going to sew.
That was what you used a friction pen to make that mark so that you knew how far you needed to applique.
Right.
Okay. And you could use whatever color pen you have. You just happen to grab a red one.
Well, I got
see
some
red.
things coming up that are going to be red and green, so I kind of went color coded, and I've got a red pen and a green pen. I didn't find a purple one because I figured it could take care of itself.
Okay, so you do use a red one simply because we're using
Red line.
We're working with red applique, red placement lines.
Right.
Okay.
Now that's about the last stitch I'm going to make. Now when I've done that, I'll rotate it, and then I'll make a couple of little small stitches right there to tie it down. And then they tie the knot. Needle through, pick up the thread that's coming from here, wrap it twice around the needle, hold that, pull the needle through, and you're done. And I'm going to take that through to the back side because foundation's coming off anyway later on.
You're just pulling your thread through to the back side.
Okay, that piece is appliqued on. Now the next thing is to take out the
pattern
that's underneath. And so I'm going to lift this up.
Okay.
And I'm going to stick my little tool in there. I'm going to lift up and I'm going to work that loose. Now it's loose. And there's the pattern that I used, and I don't need it anymore. Okay. So 2 appliques are done.
Now, do you do anything with that extra stuff in the middle? Okay.
But not quite yet. So I'm going to press it.
Oh, not quite yet. Okay.
I'm going to press it. Well, like you can see, I got rid of the red marks. Now the next thing to do is to stitch on the green line.
Because that's the next applique. That's the one that's here in the middle. This is the long one. Okay. So you're going to stitch on the green lines now.
And I don't have to worry about picking up that foot and rotating it because it's all tied down now anyway. And if you're a little bit off the green line, it doesn't really matter a whole lot because you're going to cover it up anyway.
Your green line is just a placement line. It's a placement line just for you to know that you've got the applique in the right place. Just like the red ones were the first placement line for the first round of appliques. The green is the same thing for the second round.
Okay. Okay. Now I got my pieces sewed down.
Okay, I see. So your placement lines went over the top of the appliques. You just, okay. I see why you don't do it beforehand now.
Okay. Now that's neatened up. Well, as good as it's going to be for right now. Okay, now then, I'm going to get rid of, now we got to put this one down. And I already prepared it.
Is it the same as the ones on the outer
No,
canvas?
it's a little bigger. There should be.
I'll let you pick out the one you want.
It has to be App 3B. This is 4. There should be another one, and I think maybe there it is on the bottom. Well, I clipped these together because it's easy to lose them, and I prepared these beforehand. I have freight checked the points and done all the good stuff. Now, one other thing. You really need this thing to be in the right place. So if you'll turn on the light over there, give me the
More light?
more light.
Is that enough?
Okay, that looks good. Now on
Okay.
the right hand, on the outside, you can see this line, this.
Let me get this thing here so where we can maybe see.
I'm going to draw on that with a friction pen. That's where I want the outer edge of my applique to be. And I only need to do it out here because no point in going across here. It's going to cross there all right anyway. So that
Okay.
gives me, and it's easier than trying to, with these little pieces, it's easier than trying to fit it under there and then move the top so that it is in the right place.
Okay.
Okay, now this is app 3B. This is app 3B. Okay. This and this, in other words, is not turned like so. It has to be 3B, the 3B.
Look, the writing is in the same
Writing is
direction.
in the same direction. You don't, and I put it, it's not like this. That's not the way to go. So that goes under here.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to be in the ballpark.
Okay, so you lined it up. And I'm having trouble with my lighting, getting things just right. So,
You can get rid of this light.
okay, let me see here what this will do. Oh, hit too many buttons.
Okay, so there's the green line that I drew,
Okay,
and it's a little over, but that's okay.
it's your place.
It's still within the seam lines.
Uh-huh.
So then I will.
Okay, within the seam lines. What you mean by that
Within the
is,
seam lines is within these seam lines here.
okay, so this is still shorter
Mhm.
than here,
It-
and you see that when we did the,
Right, it shouldn't encroach on the seam line that's
okay,
going to
hang
be
on a
joined
minute.
to
Let me
the
see if
next
I
one.
can get that look.
There, a little bit. Because there's the seam line right there. And the seam line is going to come. See, this one looks like he's a little over. Well, I might be redoing this block later on.
Okay, I can see just a little bit
Right.
right here.
And this one, the first one that I did, is encroaching. So I know that I'm going to have to do some backtracking and fix that. But
Fix
I'll do
that
that
one.
on another block. I'm going to go on to this one.
Okay.
And I'm not going to bore you with the applique anymore to show you how to do it.
You're doing it the same way.
Right. But rest assured, when I get done appliquing all around this, because some people are going to hand quilt. And I learned on the first one that I made that it's really hard to get a decent stitch if you've got to sew through an extra layer of foundation if you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this foundation back here, and I'm going to pull a foundation out, plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to cut away the white or the background that is next.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to reach in and pull out the pattern that is in here.
So you're down to one layer of fabric.
To one layer of fabric here.
Okay.
And I can do the same thing. Well, I don't need to do the same thing here because this foundation is going to be gone anyway after you cleaned it up. You have two layers of fabric here, unless you want to put a slit right here and cut that out. It's a small piece. It's not going to make that much difference.
It's whatever, however you want to do it.
Yeah,
but you want to get rid of as much of this as you can, the foundations, the patterns, and even if you have to split the fabric and go in from the back side to get the foundation pattern out of this applique, you want to do it.
You want to do that, yeah. And it's a good idea even to do it if you're going to long arm it, because some long armers don't want all that bulk in there. Some machines are kind of picky, some aren't.
Some are, and it can cause longer stitches and mess up a design if you're not careful. If you use a computer with it, it might give your computer some problems. It could break a stitch if it hits it just wrong.
Right.
So from one long armor to another, yes, I can see where that would be a good thing to take
and
out.
I would personally, since I've done a bunch of it now, I would take it out. And I did a lot of fused applique on the first quilt that the original that I was trying all this out on. And it's a chore to try to quilt through that stuff. In most places I've tried to avoid it.
Okay.
So,
So
okay.
this is just one of the things you're learning that we're now teaching simply because you're quilting it and learning some things.
I'm quilting my own now, and I'm learning all this stuff that I probably should have thought about ahead of time, but really didn't.
Okay.
Okay, that one we've taken care of pretty well.
Okay.
When you get done with the applique, you'll trim this up and clean it up because next you got to join.
You're going to join all the other pieces and make the block the way it
Right.
should be.
So when you cut this out,
Now let me go back to the spotlight. You know, I'm not doing too bad at this.
when you cut this out, don't brag.
I know, I'll mess it up here right
When
away.
you cut this out, you cut rectangles.
Now these are the pieces for here.
Right.
And they are single pieces of background fabric on a single piece of foundation. And then these are appliqued over the top.
Afterwards.
Afterwards.
Okay. The first thing you do, you glue your foundation to your fabric. And I want to stress you put glue out here also, because then you stitch on the red lines and you trim away what's going to be under the applique.
Okay.
Because remember, you've got a seam here also, which is going to add bulk.
Okay.
And so I trim and I go straight out and straight in. So that I did all of them that way.
Okay.
Then the next thing, and the stitching is done. Then the next thing you're going to do is trim this up and join it here.
You're going to join
This
just
is
these,
one,
just these short seams.
2, 3, and 4.
So you got this joined here, but you've got all these,
and these are all
open.
flapping loose out here.
Okay.
Then the next thing you do, that was number 4. So go to number 5. Then you'll join and you'll sew from here, but
so from the outer edge to the middle.
And you can use a pencil for this because you're going to tear the foundation away anyhow.
So you're going to extend the sewing line out. Okay, so that you've got a straight line. You're not skewing the corners of your block.
Right. And you're going to sew clear out to the edge because this edge that's the raw edge, and where this is where you're going to join it to another block. So I do that. Go through and I can eyeball a straight line pretty good when it's perpendicular, but when I'm eyeballing it on an angle, that doesn't work so great. So I always mark mine. So I would mark. You don't need to mark this one because this is going to sew to it.
It's going to be underneath. You can't see it.
So I mark
the
one you're going to see. I'd mark that one, this one, and this one. And I would sew 5, 6, 7, and 8. The block is done. After that's done, you trim up the outside edges, and that's.
And then you flip it over, and then you add your applique pieces.
Right.
Over the top of, like right here.
Right. And it'll be a guide. You'll have it.
Yeah. Okay, so right here. So, and your seam line is going to be more than likely down the middle.
Yeah.
You would hope.
After you get this appliqued, you're going to tear out the foundation. And I would tear the foundation out here. You're going to get rid of the foundation that's in the seam allowance. I would take the foundation out that's here, and then you're going to have to cut away. Maybe you're going to cut away. You got enough of an opening in there that you can reach in and pull out the foundation pattern that's in here.
Okay. Getting rid of that extra bulk in there.
Get rid of the extra bulk.
Okay.
That's the way that one goes together better than any other way that I've found.
Now we start when we just as a reminder, it's not applique, but it is a reminder on these blocks. You're starting sewing at the outside edge simply because that's a point where you know it has to meet. And if you don't sew there, your feed dogs and your presser foot could adjust things and pull one and push one, and you'll end up with a corner that's not quite a corner.
Yeah, and when you go to join this to another block, if this is open out here, if there's no seam here, then these will tend to pull apart when you join it to another block. Because some of these blocks, some are a hair larger than, and it just depends on where you sewed on the line. And just a hair larger, just a hair smaller, you've got to make it fit so that this point matches this point, then that will match that,
And
and
just
it'll
for,
join to your next block, whatever block it joins to, it'll fit right.
so basically, if we sew out into the seam allowance, it's not for this block's sake. It's for joining this to the next
That's right.
piece that keeps these corners in the right spot.
Right, keeps them together and in the right spot.
When you get to the middle, do you go right to the middle, or
I
do
go
you,
to this point.
you go to the point, or do you stop a stitch or so
A
before?
stitch away would be okay, because at a 1.45, that's pretty little.
Yeah.
So you can stop a stitch away and then back up a little bit. Likewise here, because you're doing that here and here and here and here. You don't stitch past these corners or these points here.
Okay.
And staying the stitch away lets that fabric have some place to occupy without puckering things up.
And if you leave too much in there and you don't like it, you can always go back and add a couple of stitches.
Right.
If you need to.
Right.
So there's always that option. I think, is that got kind of what you had planned on for this block, or for this?
Pretty much. That's what I had planned on for this block. That pretty well covers it on that one.
Okay. Well, I think in that case, then I don't see any other questions or anything coming in. So I think we're going to stop it for this one. I'll take the spotlight off, and we're going to close this session. It'll be posted. It's block 11D is the specific block we're working on, but this is an applique technique and different things that we've learned throughout the whole process that will go to every block that has applique, specifically closed edge, or a closed turned edge inseam.
Yeah. And
so
on any applique, if you've got a completely closed edge like these here will be, it's a really good idea. And this is hindsight speaking, hindsight's 2020. It's better if you can take out the foundation, the pattern that was in here, because it just helps you with the quilting, makes it easier. Your long armor will appreciate it. If you're a long armor, you'll appreciate it. One of those things. So it just pays to take the extra time to go back in and take out the foundation pattern.
Okay, well, in that case, I think we're going to call it, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye, y'all.